Hi everyone, welcome to part one on supporting communication skills for young children in classroom settings. So you should have already answered this question about what are the qualities of talking with your best friend. And we know that there's an openness, there's an honesty, there's a trust, and there's often a back and forth that happens with your best friend, right? So we know that, when it's a one-sided conversation, it really doesn't feel good to us. It doesn't feel like a friendship if one person is always the one who's talking and sharing and needing support. That reciprocal nature is really important, isn't it? And we rely on this conversation with our best friends for a number of different reasons, and some of them are social emotional, and some of them are, some of us like to think through problems with our friends. Your best friend might be your partner, but it's definitely something we think of differently, perhaps, than how we talk with a child. Now this is an image, of course, of probably a parent focused more on talking with, who knows, could be your best friend on the phone, as opposed to interacting with the two children sitting on the bench next to her. And you can see from their body language and everything about this that they're not really engaged in any kind of conversation. I know that when I walk into a lot of classrooms, I sometimes see adults that are, sort of standing, you'll see an image of this soon, sort of standing around talking to each other rather than really engaged in conversations with children. And since we know that oral language development is very, very important, it includes critical skills that help children, first of all, communicate, that they listen and respond when people are talking. And when we do that with children, we model that for them. They also understand the meaning of a large number of words and concepts when they hear or read or have conversations that include higher level vocabulary. They obtain new information about things they want to learn more about. So it helps them pursue their own interests and understandings of the world around them. And it also helps them express their own ideas and thoughts using very specific language in increasingly complex and abstract language as they get older. Why language is so important is the research shows us that oral language is critical foundation for reading, writing, and spelling. We can think of it as the engine of learning and thinking. And research suggests that young children's ability to use language and to listen to others and understand the meaning of spoken and written words is related directly to their later literacy achievement in reading, writing, and spelling. Oral language skills start developing in infancy and start to develop throughout life. So if you think about this, infants listen to and become aware of the sounds of words being spoken to them by the adults around them. Very early on, children begin to communicate their own needs through sounds and gestures. Toddlers use language to express feelings and ideas and seek information, just like the kiddo in this image here. They begin to talk in simple sentences, to ask questions and give their own opinions about things they like and they don't like. Young preschoolers build on a larger vocabulary from the language of people around them and from new ideas in books. They begin telling make-believe stories and talk about things and events that are not here, in the here and now, not concrete. They are either happened yesterday, or they might happen tomorrow, or they'll talk about things they can't see, events, or other types of abstract thinking. And they use language that's more complex, with more complete sentences and sentences with multiple parts. Their grammar expands, their vocabulary expands, and all of this is something we know about how this goes on. And then once kids get into kindergarten, first and second grade, they're really able to start analyzing using language. They're able to think cognitively. They can think in bigger abstract thoughts, again, even more abstract than preschoolers, and they can start to really engage in a more higher level thinking using language as they get older. One of the research papers that came out actually quite a while ago that has been pushing a lot of programs to look more closely at how to develop oral language and its importance on, for example, reducing the gap in third grade for reading skills that we're seeing among children in poverty versus children from more affluent families, is this research project by Hart and Risley. Again, I believe it's back in the 70s when this was done. And it talks about this achievement gap being related to the number of words that children are exposed to in early childhood, so beginning in infancy. What they noticed is, and they surveyed and they listened to families, different families, and so they found children in professional families, which tend to be more affluent, had a significantly more vocabulary words than children who were from families living in poverty. And you can see as children age, that gap gets wider and wider and wider. And so what the research suggests is that if without an intentional way of really building the vocabulary develop of these young children, some children from certain populations may be more at risk for developing later problems with reading and writing in school. So in early childhood classrooms, we can do a lot to buffer that and provide some of those things for children. I used to often have an argument with an assistant superintendent of a school district I worked in about how preschool teachers, this was just before they actually mandated that preschools provide a drill-based set of sight words that children would be just sort of drilled on and would have to know before getting into kindergarten because they were trying to address this reading gap. And I had to say, but wait, what the kids that come to us with these lower vocabulary, what they're not getting at home, and it's not the parents' fault, it's just the nature of what it takes to try to manage 3 jobs and still be a parent. Sometimes, these kinds of compounding factors. But what's missing sometimes there is the time to read every day, to go to museums, to go to parks, to have conversations with your child, to know that having conversations with your child is really important, and to talk about things that you see in the world around you, and to wonder about things together. And those are the things that we can support families with by providing those extensions in the classroom. Instead of expecting children to sit down and have very formal literacy training, essentially, what we need to do, and this is what I would say, is permission from administrators and others to take what we know about the research and do what's right for kids to provide that very language-rich classroom. So I would say we need permission to let go of those lesson plans for a while and to just sit with kids, hang out with them on the beanbag, read with them, sing with them, talk with them about things going on, take walks outside and talk about what you see. That's what we can do to promote that language-rich environment that can really help to build the oral language skills and the vocabulary skills that provide that foundation for later reading and writing development in school. So we can really do a lot if we start looking at it as not treating little kids, birth through age 5, as if they were already 8, but looking at how does this trajectory of development go. So in the next set, we're going to look more closely at what a language-rich classroom looks like.